Hello there, I'm your host Tiffany Gleland, an Australian business and mindset coach with 10 years experience in online marketing and the creator of the Brave Launch framework. I help coaches like you to be brave so you can stop dreaming and start doing that next big brave step and finally make more impact and get more clients. From speaking on camera to selling to launching, my approach to bravery helps you take bigger leaps without the mindset spirals. It's the secret ingredient to bigger results. Today, I'm talking to nobody. I am talking myself. You can see this is where the script ran out. Okay, so today I am doing a solo episode and I wanted to get on here and talk to you about some themes that are happening for me at the moment, which there's plenty of takeaways for you as a coach or a service-based business owner. And that is perfectionism, procrastination, and failure, because I have been doing all of these to varying degrees, especially around the podcast and podcast creation. And also, some good news is that my business has been growing. My income increased by about 50% per month. And while that's not a huge amount of income, you guys know I am not yet at the six-figure mark. However, for me, it has been an increase in workload and managing all of the things. And the beautiful idea is hiring someone to help me with the podcast. However, in reality, and breaking that down, and depending on how far we get here with what I'm going to talk to you about, that has not been quite as easily said. Than it's easier said than done, is what I'm trying to say. So I hope you don't mind. This is kind of a rough and ready podcast because I just wanted to get in here and create something. Also, weirdly, this is easier than editing one of the many recorded episodes I have with amazing guests, because at the moment I have people every day wanting to be a guest on the podcast, and I'm sending them the link, and I haven't been editing because I have been busy with my business and client work and the stuff that pays the bills and keeps the lights on. And this podcast is amazing. I love sharing these stories and getting to connect with people. And what I find most interesting is sometimes it's these solo podcasts where I have a few notes and then it can go in many directions. Those are the ones that people reach out to me and go, oh, this one hit home for me, especially the one about money that I recorded a little while ago about overcoming money anxiety, right? And yeah, and actually the good update for that is that me getting through that money anxiety actually helped me to make more money. I was more on top of things and the universe kind of provided and that kind of thing. I was able to, just make sure like I was on top of how many people I was making offers to and therefore creating more clients and things like that. Of course, that also meant like creating more service-based clients as well, which creates like more work and it can be a bit more intensive than just the coaching. I really like the coaching because it just allows me to have, okay, here's our day and time, we meet, I do the work, and then everything is good. And yes, maybe I send through the replay, maybe I give you some feedback in between time and things like that, but it's not as heavy duty as having to like when I do service-based work for usually for coaches or for other business owners, I have to sort of step into their brain and pretend to be them for a while. And especially if I'm writing content on their behalf or helping them plan out a launch or plan out something or do ads and things like that, I'm stepping into the brain of them, and I'm also stepping into the brains of their clients. And yeah, that stuff just takes a bit more time. I mean, I'm still doing that when I'm in a coaching call, but it's in this very, I don't know, it comes easily to me to step into it for that moment. The creating of content and things like that, that can be harder, especially around other calls and things like that. Like in a perfect scenario, it's like perhaps I could spend all day Monday finding clients and then spend Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday doing their work. Like that would be amazing. However, that's just not how I work it and how life works and things like that. So yeah. So what I wanted to talk to you guys about was just perfectionism, procrastination, and failure. And it's why I am creating this very rough and ready episode, because I just need to break through a block. I need to get something up there. I need to get something out there. I want to be able to talk to people and say, yes, I have a podcast, and know that I'm putting things out there. While it's not exactly the interview posts, it is this. And I just thought, like, I know so many of you struggle with consistency, putting yourself out there, and that kind of thing. And so I guess I just wanted to be this example of, in some ways, what is possible. And weirdly, what is possible when things are a little more chaotic, when things are perhaps not going according to plan. And sometimes when those things are just like, some days it's 10:30 a.m. and you just want to stop and start all over again tomorrow. And just, it's like, how do we get through that? How do we get our brains through that? How do we start taking action through that? And yeah, I just wanted to share this stuff, partly because I'm in the middle of moving through it myself, but also because this has also kind of been my life's work. So, okay, I have like 5 or 6 dot points. The idea is that I'm going to create a short episode, but maybe this is going to be also therapy for Tiff too. So here we go, guys. Strap yourselves in. So, the thing about me is that I have, for the longest time, most of my life, dealt with anxiety to varying degrees. At times of my life, it was nearly debilitating, and it was hard to do things and show up and pretend to be a real person, right? And pretend to be someone that doesn't have anxiety. Meanwhile, underneath, just everything is just roiling and boiling, and everything needed to be overthought. And yeah, and the fun parts about being in that energy is, on the good side of things, it can be very easy to get things started, to get things happening, and sometimes to weirdly have ideas, because sometimes that anxiety can be churning, and then it's like, oh, okay, let's just fix this. Let's just fix this now and dive in and do that. And that's sometimes how that goes. Other times, the anxiety is so much that it creates that freeze response from the fight, flight, or freeze, and nothing would happen. So also not fun. However, yeah, this is why I've had to create these skills of being brave, to step out of my comfort zone, the skills of being brave to feel emotions. Emotions I'm oftentimes trying to not feel. And that's part of how sort of perfectionism works, is that oftentimes perfectionism is this very complicated set of strategies that you have for yourself, so that you don't feel failure and the flow on effects of failing and not doing things right, which is usually shame. And there's something else too, but just, yeah, the self, I don't know, I don't want to say self-loathing, but just that shame cycle of then, making yourself feel bad about it, and then feeling bad for feeling shame and all that sort of stuff. And your brain doesn't want you to feel that. And so it has these other coping mechanisms, and a lot of them revert to perfectionism. And so the ironic thing for me, though, was that perfectionism was never something that was ever attainable. So I don't know, like, if you'd have talked to people in my life, the last thing they would have said was that I was a perfectionist. I don't think they would have said that, because perfectionism, when like it can have two modes. For some people, it's great and it helps them achieve things and get things done. The other mode is that, well, it's never going to be good enough. Why start? I don't want to feel bad because it's not good enough. I don't want to feel ashamed because it's not good enough. So why start? And then, so then that can look like a lot of procrastination and a lot of laziness and things like that. And I've had to untangle all of those things in my business and in my brain to tackle everything. Right. And for the most part, for in the last couple of years, it's been much, much easier as I have built skills and been okay with things kind of being B plus and that kind of stuff. But then at times, this whole perfectionism, procrastination, and failure loop, or it's nearly like a figure eight with stops along the way or something. So it just comes up, and then things need to happen. And yeah, like this is where oftentimes we can end up in this all or nothing approach to getting content done, to getting clients, to creating the PDF or the opt-in, the email series and things like that. And the thing is, when it's sort of all or nothing, it's like, you're either all in and getting the stuff, the posts out and everything's happening, and then you can end up like with that, you can fall off one day and then not keep going. And it's funny, as I'm talking to you about this now, I'm thinking about a podcast I did a few weeks ago about the thing that consistency doesn't exist. And this is that similar theme of, okay, we have this idea about how things are going to go, and then when they don't go that way, it's being able to recover quickly and to be able to stay in that identity of, I have a podcast, I create a podcast, or I am a coach and I have clients pay me on time. These sorts of things that we want to keep in our identity. And so when something happens that perhaps questions that identity, we need to be able to be strong enough to, work through that and that kind of thing, but also to be able to stay in that identity, because that's what helps with the shifts, and that's what helps with the attracting things to us and that kind of thing. So where am I going to go from there? So I guess understanding that that's my background with perfectionism, procrastination, and failure, how it's coming up a little bit, nothing like what it used to be. Okay, guys, nothing like what it used to be. And now I'm taking some steps to move through it. And that is first up, just staying in that identity of the person who I want to be. So in this case, being someone who gets podcasts out every week, right? And who has a podcast and who posts regularly and is reliable in that posting of the podcasts. And then also staying in that identity, and then coming back to, okay, what's my first step? Sorry, it's kind of a combination of two things that I do in my head at this point. So it's usually, okay, what are the steps that I need to do to make this happen? And so writing out steps, and then I look at those steps and they are usually overwhelming, right? Overwhelming beyond belief, right? Especially when you've been spending some time not creating the podcast. And I just want you to know, me not creating or not editing and publishing the podcast, it hasn't been, me on a tropical island sipping drinks and things like that. It was actually just me really frustrated with having to spend my Sundays, time I could be spending with my husband, or just time I could be spending not on the business, working on the podcast. When I first originally planned to do the podcast, I thought I would be doing some editing in the evenings through the week, and maybe a little bit on the weekend. I had it planned out. It was going to be amazing. It started out being interesting, not amazing. So yes, I was getting the work done, but there was an impact in that I wasn't sleeping as well on those nights, and the following day I'd be more sluggish. And so I realized, okay, those are signs for me that I'm overworking myself, and because I have chronic pain and chronic illness, I have to watch out for those things. And so, yeah, I have to, yeah, I can't work into the evening, even with breaks throughout the day. I have to kind of stop at about 5 or 6 o'clock, right? Sometimes I'll do a call in the later evening with somebody in Europe or the UK, but I plan around that, take time off, that kind of stuff beforehand. And yeah, that just seems to be different than just all of this time, I guess, in front of a screen in the evening and not having that time to wind down. So yeah, coming back to step one, stay in the identity. Step two is to, I think maybe first ask yourself, how can this be easier, right? And then maybe come up with a plan and take a look, and it's like, okay, what things, like, it's like step into the possibility of this being easier. What's a different way we could do this to make this easier, especially for, like, if you are having trouble consistently posting online, creating content of various types, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, how can we make this easier for now until we build our skills? Much like if we were wanting to lose weight and go to the gym, we wouldn't possibly go into the gym tomorrow and go, cool, see the 10 kilo weight, the 20-pound weight, I'm going to start there, right? We'd probably be like, okay, how can we start simply and easily, and then we build up to that. And I think oftentimes we maybe forget about that when it comes to creating content, especially if you're trying to do something new with content. Because just so you know, it's not just me doing podcast. I'm doing new types of reels where I'm on camera more, and there's a bit more editing involved in those. I'm doing a bunch of new things at once, reaching out to more people, more making offers, getting on more calls, more networking calls. I'm doing a lot of things. And for those of you who are familiar with human design, I am a manifesting generator. I am very new to human design, but the one thing I have picked up about manifesting generators is we tend to be people who are kind of okay with having 100 different things on the go at once, right? But then we do reach a limit and all of us will have different limits. And yeah, this is where I'm getting to. So it's like my brain is quite happy to have all of these things happening at once. And if that is overwhelming to you, don't feel like you have to do what I do. There's plenty of other personality types who can do things slower and that kind of thing. But this whole thing, like, actually, this is a really good point. The cost of me operating at this level where I am on the edge of overworking myself and things like that is leaking into or working its way into calls I'm having with people. I had an awesome coffee chat call with someone on Friday, and she was asking me about my business, and I was overtired from a week of burning the candle at both ends and not sleeping enough, and I was definitely more all over the place, and oh, and I do this and I do that and this and that, and it wasn't quite, I mean, I often show people, oh, I'm working on many things, but it does come across in this tone of voice of, hey, yes, I have things going on. Tell me where you're at. Okay, here's the thing I work on that could be useful for you, and do it that way and talk in this kind of calm voice, as opposed to perhaps a bit like, oh, and I do this and I do that and this and that, and oh yeah, and then there's this and that, and jumping around. I know when I do these solo podcasts, I jump around a little bit, but there's still, I think, a bit more of a logical flow. But you can tell when I'm working at this kind of rate that logical flow is not as present, and that definitely affects my ability to get clients, right? Because I think a lot of people, especially when I probably attract people who might be similar to me, who have a lot of things on the go, they need to know that I can be the calming presence and be the person who can come in and show up in that coaching energy, which I absolutely can do. And yet because I'm operating at this level, trying to do all of the things, it's just, there's not, like, this is the cost of these decisions that I'm making, right? Is that it is leaking into those calls I'm having with colleagues, potential clients, things like that. And it's also not allowing me to have creative ideas to serve people and things like that. So I am coming around to a place now where I might have to say no to some things, is the next thing. So it was staying in the identity and then saying, okay, now, how can I make this easier? What is a very small step I can take, right? Planning out the very small steps, especially when you are blocked and can't get things done. It's like, plan it out of, I'm going to turn on the computer. I am going to load up the editing software, or I am going to load up Instagram, or I'm going to take a photo about this with this, and just help get your brain and your subconscious on board with these tiny little steps. And that can help to break through a lot of this, right? And just one step at a time. If you happen to write down all 20 steps and look at it and go, that's overwhelming, put a piece of paper over all of the other steps and just show yourself that first step, and then you can cross it out, move it down to the next step. Actually, that's a really awesome idea. I should do that more myself as well. So yeah, just some ways to break through if you're in this kind of cycle. I also want to say, watch your thoughts, like write down your thoughts, what's going on that side of things. Because years ago, when I used to go through this, the thoughts would be, I didn't get this done and I wanted to get it done, and why can't I can't get anything done. I'll never have a business. Nobody will ever work with me. Like the things that I used to make it mean about me. And it used to be this reinforcement of how I wasn't good enough, right? I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, and you'll probably hear more about it from me. But basically, like, part of the reason why I've been in online marketing for 10 years, but I don't already have my 6-figure salary and all that kind of stuff, is just because there was just this thing in me where I just felt like, yeah, completely okay for other people to do it. And even my clients, they would make more money than me, all that good stuff. But there was something just missing in me that meant that I couldn't have the business that I wanted, the life that I wanted. And then every time I didn't post, every time I missed some sort of deadline or something like that, and I don't do that much anymore because I'm better at planning my time in advance, and I have a whole system for planning out the week in advance. And if you're listening to this and you want to know about that, then let me know. I would love to share that with you. And yeah, and the secret is buffer time. Okay, don't plan every single minute. Have buffer time, because things never go according to plan, and then you need to create new plans on the fly. And that's what unscheduled buffer time helps you to do. And it helps you feel much better, because you're not over planning and underdoing, not getting all the things that you plan to get done. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm not going to edit this podcast, so I apologize. But I have to, like, do what I'm talking about. And it's like, here's me. It's like, how can I make this easier? Hey, I could just record something and just publish it. I've even recorded the intro, so all I have to do is just maybe trim off the beginning and the end and put it up and put it out there. And this is the podcast for this week. It gives me another week to stress about getting the rest of it done. That's next week's problem. Okay. So yeah, there was something else that I was going to say. So the steps that I'm taking, I've talked through those. You can see that I'm doing those steps. I told you to also look at your mindset and what you're doing. And at the moment, I'm in a good place because I've been doing this stuff for so long. My thoughts don't go to, oh, I missed something, therefore I'm deficient and I'll never have the business that I want. Now my brain has been trained into, with these steps that I have, my brain has been trained into, okay, no problem. We'll make a new plan. This doesn't mean anything about us. who we are. I don't know why I'm talking about me as a multiple person, but this doesn't mean anything about me. This doesn't mean anything about my ability to have the life that I want. This is just part of the process, right? Because when we are being brave, we are working outside of our comfort zones, okay? Sometimes bravery is having just a new system for doing something. Sometimes bravery is, it's just, it's so boring. I did that reel recently where it's like, what people think bravery means, and it's like, hey, I've got the Superman outfit on, but what it really means is just like at a computer and doing the work. It can be a lot less glamorous than it should be, but it's just this is what can be brave for our brains and for our subconscious. And if you're still listening to this, it's very likely that you have some overlap with who I am and some of my own experiences, and that this feeling of anxiety, trying to get things done, moving through that, perhaps even perfectionism and procrastination and just handling failure is holding you back. And so I encourage you to take the steps from today's episode. I also encourage you to just message me, tell me like what you related to with this episode. If you have other tips, I'm sure that there's other things. That's the other thing that I was going to say, is that the other thing to be aware of is after you have your plan and you start taking steps forward, is just being aware of the obstacles that are going to come up that are going to throw you off again, right? So those obstacles can be people in our lives, not trying to throw us off, but people in our lives might have different routines. They might change up those routines, which might cause us to have to change something ourselves. And then that can be another reason to not get the thing done, right? Another thing can be the obstacles in your brain and the thoughts that come up, right? So when you're trying to, basically we're forming new habits, we're trying to get our subconscious on board to be okay with these new habits and to not see them as a threat or unsafe, okay? So by doing this in this way, we start sort of, visualizing how things are going to go and being okay with that, but then also just imagining, okay, what are my thoughts that can come up that can throw me off about this thing? And some of those thoughts can be, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this right now. Something else is way more important than this, right? One of the other bonuses about me going through one of these kinds of cycles and this kind of block is that for some reason my brain has been very into decluttering my house right now. And there's some certain parts of my house that look amazing, so amazing. So yeah, I just wanted to share this, okay? The obstacles. So just writing that out, what those thoughts could be, and then how you can move through those thoughts, okay? The shifting into possibility, shifting into I'm learning, okay? It's like, it's possible that I could do this differently. It's possible that I could find an easier way. It's possible that I could post less and make more money, right? So maybe part of the reason why you're not posting as much is because it's just too much for you right now in this season of life with what's going on. Maybe you just need to go back to the little baby weights, and maybe it's just, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this new type of reel once a week, right? Rather than twice a week. Let's just do once a week and see where we go. Maybe it's once every second week. Maybe it's once a month. There's just so many different ways to do this. And you get to be the leader of your own life. You get to be brave. You get to say what you're going to try next. And you don't have to beat yourself up over it. Okay. And I say this as much for you guys as much for myself. Okay. But this is kind of what sometimes just the messy middle of business looks like. And it's temporary, right? It's not going to be like this forever. And we're going to move forward, guys. I say we because I'm guessing if you're still listening to this, you're resonating on some level. So reach out. I'd love to hear how this connected with you, what parts you took, what actions you're going to take. And especially if you want any help, you by all means get in touch, get on a free call with me, talk about working with me, because for me, it's not usually a case of I can sit down for 30 minutes, solve everything, and everything is great, right? It's usually a combination of steps, a combination of, okay, try, fail, try, fail, try, fail, fail, success, success, fail, success, fail. And then it's just, it keeps reiterating and moving in that direction. But without somebody on the outside to help you through some of that, it can just be really easy to just give up at the third or fourth failure, or maybe even the first one, depending on where you're at. So, yeah, this is what I wanted to talk about today. I hope that this was of value. No, scratch that. I know this was valuable to the right people, okay? This is me being brave, sharing what I'm going through and the lessons we can all learn and how I'm moving through it and how you can too. All right. Thank you so much for listening. That's it from me. Bye for now.